India's market news headquarters. Cutting-edge analysis. Influential insights. Market-moving intelligence. Broadcasting live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios in Mumbai.
Hello and welcome. Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. It's a Friday morning. We're coming to you as always from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Surabhi and Nigel. It may be Friday, but it's action-packed. Lots of news flow to tackle, both local, but predominantly global as well. Guys, hi, morning.
Hi, morning, folks. And I guess it's going to be an action-packed, exciting weekend ahead, right? With the counting due tomorrow. But I think the markets will hope for a little less action, maybe in terms of the negative news flow, so that the bulls have a chance today.
Well, we've got plenty of negative news flow, but on days like this, sometimes things surprise you. So let's see whether we're in for that sort of a day.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thought as well. Let's see, though. It's because tomorrow is the Maharashtra election, and that's one more important trigger in that sense. So let's take it from the top, right? I mean, what you need to know as we begin another session. I'll just start with the dollar from overnight as the highlight. And I said this yesterday morning as well. After a two-day break, dollar index is starting to move back up again. And it's on an upward path. So last night, about 1/3% higher, sort of past 107 levels. Equities, I mean, higher. S&P was up 0.5. NASDAQ was flat. Russell was up 1.5. NASDAQ was flat because Google sold off 4%. And because the Department of Justice wanting to sort of ask them to divest Chrome. But it's also crazy. I mean, you got the new U.S. administration coming, and usually all these appointees get changed. And with 2 months left for Trump to take over and change the entire sort of, some of these top appointees, you're seeing all this kind of news flow. Will all of this actually happen? We'll have to see. But that's the equity change. The 10-year yield was up 1 basis point. We left off at about 4.42%. Data was strong. Initial jobless claims, existing home sales were better than expectations. Oil prices, they went up about 2%. We left around close to about $74.5 a barrel. Bitcoin and, the big 100,000 number we've been talking about, but it trades still about 98,000. I guess we'll get there. The focus is deregulation, and largely because the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission chair, there was an announcement yesterday that he's going to leave after Trump takes over. And he's, of course, been pretty strict with Bitcoin, cryptos essentially, and generally on Wall Street, etc. He's not had a very sort of warm kind of reception. Trump's promise, of course, is more market-friendly, deregulation, and him stepping down, I think, gave another leg up as far as Bitcoin is concerned. Now, just two currency pairs I want to highlight. Euro USD finally broke below an important level, which many were saying perhaps will not break. Okay, before that, I just want to address this news flow as well. Then I'll get to currencies. So this escalation between Russia and Ukraine continues. Unnamed U.S. sources to two U.S.-based publications essentially played down the claims of a Russian ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile strike. And they said, well, it was not one of those ICBMs, but essentially saying it was not a big strike, a new one. It doesn't open a new theater of war, and it's not significant escalation. Unnamed U.S. sources. I mean, that's essentially the key thing here. But I would reckon that escalation fears and comments, etc., persist. And I said this yesterday as well. Till the 20th of January, when Trump is in the White House, I mean, till that point, we will continue to hear sort of escalation and comments really coming through. And that is largely with the view of gaining an upper hand and changing facts to the ground. Because when Trump is in the White House, he's promised that he will end the war on day one, even before actually during campaign, one of his campaign promises. But we've got to get from here to there. And I think from here to there, you will hear a lot more headline. And hopefully it'll be limited and it'll be at the headline level and nothing big and drastic. So currencies, the euro broke below 1.05. It ended sort of under it. The euro region, of course, is one of the weaker economic cohorts around the world right now. Dollar JPY, this was interesting. The JPY went up 0.6% against the USD despite higher US yields, and that is largely because JPY is also a safe haven. And, there are rate differentials, etc., which were playing out as well. Now, I'll come to levels here. I think you are at the point where you start to look for that daily positive close. And that perhaps is going to bring back a little confidence and maybe a little bit of better picture out there. Too early to say if we've completed something from the high to where we kind of were at the day's lowest point, but we'll see. I mean, I think that one should start to sort of reorient yourself in that direction in terms of thinking, etc. as well. So just to put those things in levels, Nifty should not break below the 23,179 number. That's the level on the downside for the Nifty. On the way up, it's the 40 hourly exponential moving average, which is 23,611. Bank Nifty support similarly comes in at about 49,654, which is, by the way, the swing low on the 14th of August. The resistance comes in at the 40 hourly, which is 50,654. We, by the way, got to the 40 hourly on Tuesday, and then those sort of, missile headlines came in the market, it sold off. So these are back in focus again. An important near-term resistance post that after 56.54 is 50,983. As we began by saying, tomorrow is the state election results. Exit polls are showing that incumbents are going to be back in power. It's advantage BJP and allies. But I think you've got to see it to believe it. And probably maybe today is going to be spent in expecting, anticipating and waiting for those results. Monday onwards, it's going to be a better picture. GIFT Nifty on your screen should come up, and that will give you a sense of how we are starting this morning. 80 points higher, which is not bad at all. Surabhi.
Okay, well, if you're looking at hues across the region, it's fairly mixed, one would have to say. And actually, even data has been quite mixed. Just to take off from what Prashant said, in the US, while the jobless claims number was good because there was a decline, 213 versus 220 last week. Look at some of the other indicators that came out. There's this Philly Fed manufacturing survey that comes out, and there that index is in contraction zone. Suddenly it dipped to minus 5.5. This is a November reading. The estimates were about 7, and the previous month's reading was 10. So there's a sudden contraction there. Then there is the Conference Board leading economic indicators index, and that was also down. As October reading came through, it was about 0.4% lower. And this follows a decline in September as well. So, it's mixed depending on how you're reading the picture. In Japan this morning, things are very, very interesting. Actually, the Nikkei is the best performing market in the region right now. The Nikkei is up about 1%. Inflation is still, semi-elevated, you can say. The October CPI print at 2.3. September, we were at about 2.5. The thing is that core inflation, that's slightly above estimates. 2.3 versus estimates of about 2.2, which is why a lot of people in Japan are saying that the BOJ will hike rates in December. They're meeting next month for policy, and they've been on pause the last couple of times because of what's been going on in the US, but they might do a hike again. That's the chatter in Japan. That market's moving higher. Crude, we've already discussed. Because of the headlines that came through with President Putin claiming that indeed it was one of these big missiles, hypersonic missiles, that led to that risk premium. So there's a bit of an upwards bid in crude even this morning. Yesterday was about 2%, and even this morning about 0.5% on the higher side. Just now coming to the market here, yesterday the flow situation is exacerbated because of the Adani impact. The FPI number is well over 5,000 once again, and we haven't seen a plus 5,000 sell number in a while. Yesterday, obviously, it was because of the slam dunk on those shares. Domestic institutions were trying to offset a lot of that impact with the net purchases of 4,200. I'll just come to a couple of interesting stocks. While the market will, of course, hope that we respect the boundaries today, the bulls will hope for at least a little bit of a meaningful bounce. In terms of stock action, Protean governance is something that will be on my radar. The NSE holds about 20% stake in the entity, and it's selling this. Remember, it's diverse financial institutions that have ownership of this entity. They look at data collection, Aadhaar, and so on and so forth, and a lot of our tax-related data points. So 20%. There's an OFS that's coming. And Tata Power is very, very interesting, I thought, because at a time when the Adanis are struggling with their green energy initiatives or this whole talk of scandal and bribery and whatnot, Tata Power went ahead and did some large fundraising with the Asian Development Bank yesterday, about 4.25, and some of that is going to go towards their renewable projects. They just announced something in Bhutan as well. So that's another stock that's going to be in focus. But I guess, Nigel, the bulls will just hope that we protect the lows, have a little bit of a meaningful bounce, and it doesn't get sold into today.
Well, that's right. And in yesterday's trading session, the Nifty was down close to around 170 points. But things were not too bad. And I say that because, the India VIX, that didn't balloon up in yesterday's trading session. Yes, it moved up by close to around 2%, but given the fact we were down more than 170 points, or it wasn't too bad. Even the mid-cap index, periodically that index moved into the green, in fact, during the trading session, and a lot of stocks saw buying interest from the low point of the day. So that's why, though we ended lower yesterday, I'll say it wasn't too bad. But this morning, we're waking up to cues, and when I look at the global cues, the various indicators I look at, the 10-year yield, well, that's still holding at around 4.4%. Crude oil prices moved up a little bit, but they're still at very, very controllable levels of sub $75 per barrel. While the dollar index, that's the worry, that's still holding at around 107. So, taking all these cues into consideration, I think the street would like to go into, the election results, factoring in that the BJP government will do well in both the states. And that's why I believe some kind of optimism will play out in today's trading session. And maybe we see a buy on dips market that plays out, at least for today's trading session. Moving to what did the FIs do yesterday? Well, they added shorts yet again. They added close to 10,000. Short contracts, they continue to remain net short on the index. And as we've been saying in the last few trading sessions, the FIs, they're net long with net short with close to around 2 lakh contracts on the short side. While the clients, well, they in fact are net long with close to around 2.8 lakh contracts on the long side itself. So both of them at opposite ends of the spectrum. Moving to the options data, well, we start the new contract, which expires in the next week itself. The 23,300 call and the 23,300 put. Now, the narrow range between this, if there's a strategy playing out, which is known as the short, a short straddle that's taking place. They're looking to pocket close to around 400 rupees and hoping that the Nifty, expires in this range. 400 points higher than 23,300, 400 points lower than the 23,300 odd mark, which gives you a broad range, 22,900 to around 23,700 odd. But if you're looking at a tighter range, the 200 DMA becomes important on the upside. The bulls will want to get past this. And the reference point on the downside comes in at around this 20,263. But the Nifty bank, that will have to fight back. And in yesterday's trading session, the reason that it didn't look so bad is because the Nifty bank went to the 200 DMA and bounced 400 points from those levels. So if you look at the chart, yesterday, in fact, we breached the 200 DMA. And from there, we did pop up as well. The Nifty bank needs to fight back, and that's been showing signs that it wants to do that in the last few trading sessions. Finally, the stock that I'm looking at is Protean. The reason I'm looking at it is because NSE is going to be selling a close to 20% stake that it has. I'll tell you what, it's good for both parties, because for Protean, well, that was the overhang that the market was looking forward to. And this OFS, once it's out of the way, it gets back to business as usual. So, the stock will open up lower, but it could be a good opportunity. That's one. And for NSE, maybe it moves towards the path of listing. That's the sense as well. So we'll keep an eye out on Protean, which is a listed one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's going to be probably the stock of the day from the interest perspective. But guys, I just want to highlight the dollar once again. I was looking at the move in the last, I think, 10 odd minutes. It's crossed last week's high, 107.09. So the march on the dollar is something. Let's see, I mean, if that spoils the bull's party, it was quite a dramatic move just in the last couple of minutes.
Party should be.
Sorry?
Poor bulls, they're waiting to party.
Hopefully trying to get it started on a Friday, but let's see if they succeed. 107.10 now.
There's an old one, right? They said that I heard it when I first moved to Bombay. I said, well, I think it was one of those bear phases that the only place you can find a bear is the Baikala Zoo. I think you can put the word. I don't think you need to go to the zoo to catch sight of a bull. But anyway.